How are you doing this morning? I hope everybody's doing well as we get ready to start. Sorry, I got a text from Dr. Lazarus Chef, so I apologize. So he'll be on in just a moment. Just kidding. Give him a few minutes. So if we would like to call our meeting to order, and we can do a roll call.
Ms. Pulowski?
Here.
Dr. Bradbury is absent today. Mr. Ekman?
Here.
Dr. Lazarchuk? He will join us shortly. Ms. Laredo?
Here.
Dr. Payton?
Here.
Ms. Sheffield?
Present.
Dr. Sullivan?
Here.
Dr. Warner?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Okay, so I am going to, sorry, I'm communicating with Dr. Lazarus Chef. So he is going to be here any moment. Give him a minute. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the moderator so that we can go ahead and get instructions on the meeting today and learn how to participate.
Good morning. Thank you. This is the moderator. Before we get started, I would like to remind committee members and staff who are not speaking to please mute their microphones. If any background noise is detected during the meeting as a result of unmuted microphones, we will provide a brief reminder or simply mute microphones as to not interrupt the meeting. There are members of the public in the audience and meeting minutes are being taken, so I ask committee members and staff to please identify themselves before speaking. To facilitate public comment, we will be utilizing the WebEx question and answer or Q&A feature. When the committee chair reaches a point in the agenda at which public comment is appropriate, public comment will be requested. At the committee's direction, we will turn on and announce the opening of the Q&A feature. Members of the public can indicate that they would like to make a comment by clicking the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of the WebEx screen. These instructions will be shared on your screen each time for your reference, and they're being displayed at this moment. In the Ask field, typically in the lower right of the screen, members of the public who wish to make a comment will type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. Any other communications will not be responded to. Members of the public, it is not necessary to identify yourselves in order to make public comment. We will call on the requests in the order that they are received, and we will unmute the microphones and then move on to the next member of the public. Please note that Q&A feature is being used only as a means for the members of the public to represent that they would like to make a verbal comment. Once unmuted, the member of the public may verbally state their comment. This is not a means to ask questions of the moderator or members of the committee. Such inquiries submitted using this feature will not be responded to. If any attendees utilize a profane name, they will not be called upon to prevent members of the public from being subjected to profane language. While you are free to express criticism for the sake of the members of the public participating on the call, please do not use profane language when making public comments to the committee. And please note the hand-raising feature is being used by the committee members and staff to facilitate discussion. Thank you, and I'll pass it back to the committee chair.
Thank you very much. And I will do my best to catch everyone when they have their hand raised. So please use that feature. I do have to scroll through. I have as many of you on the screen as possible. And I do ask that when you are speaking, please be certain to put your video on. I know a lot of us turn our video off because we are at home and we have a lot of things happening behind us, so I understand that. But if we can make sure to turn our video on when we're speaking, that would be great. I appreciate it. Okay, agenda item 2, committee chair remarks and committee member comments. I actually do not have any remarks at this time, so I'll move on to any committee member comments. I don't see any hand raised, but I do see that Dr. Lazarus Chef is now with us. So,
Yeah, I made it.
thank you, Dr. Lazarshev. Okay, can we open this up to, I have to open everything up to the public, and I have a note to myself to remember that this time. Public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I'm opening up the Q&A for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your right screen and send "I would like to make a comment" to all panelists. So I'm going to pause for a moment now to allow members of the public time to access the feature. Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, public comment on items not on the agenda. So do we have any of those from the committee? Feel free to speak out if I'm not seeing your hand. Okay, we can go ahead and open this up to the public.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A, and the instructions are on the screen. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to agenda item number 4, review and approval of October 21st, 2020 committee meeting minutes. Don't everybody say anything at once. Okay, good job, guys. Wow, you guys are full of energy. I know I have a comment and I have trying to get to it from my computer. So, and of course, my computer is not going to let me. Give me a minute. Anybody have anything to say? Wow, you guys are like silent. Do you know how to use the mute off button this morning? I'm a little concerned. Dr. Sullivan, thank you.
I move to approve the minutes as written. And I second that.
Great. We have a motion in a second. Anybody want to have any discussion on that? Okay, so we can open this up to public comment.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A at the request of the committee. Members of the public, you can click on the Q&A icon, type "I would like to make a comment" and send it to all panelists if you would like to make a comment. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please.
It has been closed. Thank you.
I hope we get some speaking during this next one. Okay, agenda item number 5.
Nope, sorry, I have to call roll.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, we have to
I'm
vote.
trying to call, I'll take a
I
vote.
was ready to keep going. At least, yeah.
Okay.
Let's vote on this. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Pulowski,
Yes, I approve.
Mr. Ekman,
Yes, I approve.
Dr. Lazarchev. Dr. Lazarchev?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Ms. Laredo,
Yes.
Dr. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Sheffield? Ms. Sheffield?
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Warner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, let's try this again. So agenda item number 5, presentation and discussion regarding the RVT Foreign Graduate Review Program. So I know that Nancy Gritman is on as well. I believe I saw her in the participants.
Yes, I am
There we
here.
go. Thank you.
And, well, first of all, it's nice. I wish I was in sunny California instead of snowy Kansas City.
It's
but,
not funny.
okay. Well, maybe a little warmer.
Probably. I will say that then, but thank you for being here.
You're very welcome. It's nice to be here, and I will share my screen, and we'll get started with the information and presentation I have. So let me get to that and make sure all of you can see my screen. All right. So I need to move something out of the way here. So there we go. Well, again, good morning. It's still morning here in Kansas City as well. I'm Nancy Gritman, Senior Director of Program Services with the American Association of Veterinary State Boards. And again, want to thank you for the opportunity to share the Pay for Veterinary Technicians presentation. The AVSB Board of Directors approved the program for the assessment of veterinary education equivalents for veterinary technicians, standards and policies in December. And I know Ms. Sieferman included the standards and policies in your packet today. So initially, upon receiving expressed interest from several AVSB member boards, both in the US and Canada, including California, a Pay for Veterinary Technicians Subcommittee, initially of the VT&E, the Veterinary Technician National Examination Committee, began discussions on a pathway for veterinary technicians, international veterinary technicians in the fall of 2017. The Pay for Veterinary Technicians Ad Hoc Committee was appointed by the AVSB Board of Directors in January 2019 to develop this program. And Ms. Laredo from the California Veterinary Medical Board currently serves on this committee. We also have Ms. Kim Williams, who previously served on the California board, and she had also served on the AVSB's VT&E committee. So we do have California representation on this committee. In approving the standards and policies in December 2020, I wanted to highlight some of the information. So the Pay for Veterinary Technicians defines an international veterinary technician nurse graduate as a veterinary technician nurse whose degree was conferred outside of the United States and Canada by a recognized post-secondary professional school of veterinary technology nursing or equivalent program. Graduates from recognized post-secondary professional school of veterinary technology nursing or equivalent programs outside the United States or Canada in Non-American Veterinary Medical Association Committee on Veterinary Technician Education Activities, AVMA CVTA, or Non-Canadian Veterinary Medical Association, the CVMA accredited programs are considered to be international veterinary technician nurse graduates. So again, those international who are not outside of the US and Canada and have not graduated from either of the accredited recognized programs are considered, would be considered for this program. So the purpose of the pay for veterinary technicians is to assess the education equivalence of international veterinary technician nurse graduates on behalf of participating AAVSB member boards, ensuring that pay for veterinary technician certified credential candidates have the qualifications and experience that are equivalent to an AVMA CVTA and CVMA accredited veterinary technology nursing education. So the pay for veterinary technicians will initially complete an AAVSB online application. They'll be submitting identifying documents such as notarized copy of a passport, birth certificate. We will have an affidavit allowing us to collect this information and review it. And we will request documents from primary source institutions, which I'll provide a little more explanation on the next slide. So the pay for veterinary technician candidates must substantiate English language proficiency when submitting a pay for veterinary technician application through the AVSB. There are two options. Option one is completion with minimum scores of the TOEFL, IBT, or Home Edition, the test of English as a foreign language exam, or the International English Language Testing System, known as the IELTS. The option two is substantiation that the pay for veterinary technician candidates has attended at least 3 years at a secondary high school or graduated from a post-secondary professional veterinary technology nursing school or equivalent program within that country, under which the complete language of instruction was English. A letter received by pay for veterinary technicians will come directly from school officials, stating the dates of attendance and verifying that the complete language of instruction was English, and a certified or notarized copy of that final high school or post-secondary diploma or transcript, again received directly from the institution. All of the supporting documentation, including official syllabi, outlines of courses completed at their recognized post-secondary professional school of veterinary technology nursing or equivalent program, and official transcripts must be received directly from the institution to the AAVSB or its designee. The AAVSB and its designee will be verifying a recognized school that is officially approved and meets the educational requirements for credentialing by the government of its country. So the AAVSB will develop a world list of AAVSB pay for veterinary technicians, veterinary technology nursing, or equivalent programs, similar to the AVMA colleges, veterinary colleges of the world list. Will require a letter directly from the Ministry of Education of that country, stating that the program is recognized by the national government as granting professional degrees in veterinary technology nursing or equivalent programs. All official documents, including transcripts, will be vault verified. That is verified by the AVSB staff with the assistance of the designee, ensuring they are primary source and the institution meets the recognized school requirements established by the AVSB. To assist the state or provincial board credential process, the member board staff for California, as well as other member board staff, will have secure online portal access to electronic copies of the vault verified stamped official transcripts that the AVSB has reviewed, as well as the assistance of designee. And they're uploaded to the Pay for Veterinary Technician Candidates AAVSB Viva database record. Vault verified electronic copies are currently available in an AAVSB secure online portal for California Veterinary Medical Board staff for VT&E candidates selecting California for credentialing. So these additional official transcripts that are vault stamped will also be available for the staff. And in accepting the vault verified official electronic copies of the document is efficient, reducing time and burden of the Pay for Veterinary Technician candidates to request the transcripts a second time to be sent to the specific board. The AAVSB will also look at including the Pay for Veterinary Technician certificate through our current member board portal as well. So the course by course evaluation, a little bit about that. Founded in 1994, ACEI, which is the Academic Credentials Evaluation Institute, is a full service company providing complete and integrated services in-house in the areas of international education research, credential evaluation, and translation. As the committee was developing this program, we looked at several different services that were available and made a decision, which was approved by the board, to utilize ACEI. And they will assist in substantiating the education equivalence and identifying gaps in the international non-accredited curriculum completed by each candidate. Gaps will be determined by comparing the completed coursework to that of the AVMA CVTA and CVMA accredited veterinary technology nursing curriculum, the essential skills requirements. Any identified gaps in the course curriculum and a recommendation of gap content completion will be reviewed by the Pay for Veterinary Technicians Committee. And the Pay for Veterinary Technicians Committee, with the assistance of AAVSB staff, will communicate directly with the candidate on next steps in the program. The AAVSB has determined that the program application fee, which has been approved, is $300. There will be additional fee for the comprehensive evaluation report completed by ACEI, and as applicable, an evaluation report of the high school, secondary school transcripts. Those fees are, the candidates will directly pay in through a customized application that ACEI has developed with our assistance that will be within the web pages as they apply through the program. And the approximate cost of the evaluation report, for your information, is $185, and if they require a high school, secondary school basic evaluation report fee, that's an additional $95. The other thing to note is that any document translation to English fees are an additional cost as well to the candidate. So as far as the gap content completion, after, in that respect, the Pay for Veterinary Technician candidates will get a report indicating what gap content they have after that evaluation. They'll have the opportunity to apply to an AVMA CVTEA or CVMA accredited veterinary technology nursing distance learning or on-campus program to complete and successfully pass the course or courses that contain that identified gap content. And we will require documentation from that accredited program, as well as a transcript to verify completion of that gap courses, of those gap courses. Upon receiving all of that documentation, the Pay for Veterinary Technicians Committee will complete its final review, again, reviewing all the steps of the pathway, including the completed gap content. And if approved, the Pay for Veterinary Technician certificates are issued. And those issued certificates are subject to ratification by the AVSB Board of Directors. Upon request from the candidate, that official copy of the certificate may be provided directly to the designated jurisdiction credentialing board. And again, as I noted earlier, we are looking into and very confident that we'll be able to provide that document along with their official transcripts, English translated transcripts, as well to the jurisdictions through our secure online portal that we already have established, and we'll be working on all of those internal processes. The Pay for Veterinary Technician certificate holders are eligible to submit an AAVSB VT&E online application per exam eligibility requirements. And exam eligibility requirements are determined by the jurisdiction veterinary credentialing board. So we review on behalf of California as well as other jurisdictions based on what your requirements are. And as you know, what you are considering is recommending proposed legislation to the California Veterinary Board to consider accepting the AVSB Pay for Veterinary Technician certificate as a pathway, as one step of the credentialing process. So the next steps, as I mentioned, we did provide and approve the standards and policies. Those have been sent out to all of our member boards, and so we're working individually with each member board and kicking it off with California actually to review and put forth necessary statutes and rules to accept the pathway and accept the certificate. We're finalizing the internal processes and all the documents. We will be developing the online application, as I alluded, the ACEI customized application for the course evaluation and the applicable post-secondary high school transcript evaluation process. That's already developed and will be ready to go and with a link within our website when that goes live. So we're assisting member boards right now with information on statute and rule changes and once the statutes are in place, any processes that we can assist them with. We expect to launch the Pay for Veterinary Technicians application in 2021 later on. We want to ensure that the timing of that launch is in sync with as the jurisdictions, not only the US, but in Canada, begin to accept that through their statutes. And I know the proposed California legislation has that scheduled for beginning January 2022. So at this time, I'll go ahead and unshare the presentation here, if I can get to the right screen. Just a second, of which I'm struggling right now.
This is the moderator. I can take the presenter role if that's okay.
Thank you. So there we go. I had put it down in a corner and forgot where I put that screen. So I'd be glad at this time to answer specific questions around the standards and policies. Again, Ms. Laredo on the California board has been a participant and has been a part of this committee from pretty much the beginning. So, and appreciate her assistance in this.
Do we have any questions from the committee? I don't see any hands raised. I have a question, so I'll start since I don't see anybody. So I noticed that in the education that there's identifying gap areas, and then that, so my question kind of is a relative to that. What if the curriculum is not readily available for a student? And it's twofold in that, so will RVT programs have to allow these candidates to take one or two courses? So is that something they're going to have to allow these students to do?
Yeah, it is, it's similar how, as you all know, the AVSB has the Pay for Veterinarian program. And so the, obviously very similar, the programs are all accredited. And so depending upon this, the structure, they meet all the requirements of the AVMA, CVTA, and CVMA. And so in some situations, the gap that's identified may be one course, it could be two courses. So it depends where that individual candidate is seeking to take those courses. The one thing that I will note as far as those essential skills requirements that are built within the accredited programs, as they're completing that specific course or to address the gap content, they're showing that they have completed that, also that essential skill that may be wrapped around that particular gap content. So if they, if it's seen that they're in looking at their curriculum and the syllabi and all of that, and it's determined that they need to take a course on pharmacology or this specific skill requirement, it may be dependent on how that is structured within a specific school's program. So hopefully that helped answer.
Yeah, so we may, AVMA's accreditation process may be that they require a school to allow these students to step in for one or two classes.
One or two courses, and that can, and that is a good question. That can vary. Some schools, there are schools that I know will allow that. What is, I think, called sort of transient students allowed to take a course in course. There may be programs that do not, but we're not limiting to what programs that they can seek out. And again, we have been very proactive in trying to get upfront a lot of that information as well, and still working through that because there's 200 and some schools. So, but we also have had numerous program directors of schools already say, we're on board to this, we're very excited about this. So we have had that commitment, but we do know, just as with the Pay for Veterinary program, these candidates will have to meet the school's enrollment requirements. And that's, that is just very standard, and that can be different from one school to another as well. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Nancy and Christy, if I could just interject for a minute, I just wanted to add, I think that the onus then falls on that candidate because in California, there are very few programs that would allow them to have one class. So I don't think, Christy, I'm not sure if that's what you were asking, if the requirements for the programs are going to change. I don't think we can force the RVT programs to change their policies to allow a person to take one course, but then that responsibility falls back on that candidate.
But and thank you, Ms. Lorader, for that. But as I mentioned, we do and have already identified schools that do allow transient students. So,
Anyone else on the committee have any questions? Anybody on the subcommittee have anything to add before we open this up to the public?
I'll just jump in real quick. Members, on page 19, I believe that's the last page of your materials, is a legislative proposal. If the MDC is, if you approve accepting this, I do recommend one minor amendment in the section that starts with B, where it struck out. B1, the last sentence says proof of graduation must be submitted directly to the board by the college or other post-secondary institution. I would actually recommend a tweak to that to have it say by the college or other, by the college, other post-secondary institution or AAVSB, because that would allow us to accept the proof of graduation from AAVSB's vault program. So if the members do approve the program after having taken public comment and having further discussion, then we would want to entertain a motion to recommend this to the board to include in the sunset bill.
So while we're listening to public comment, if everybody can reread over that, because I'm assuming you all read over it multiple times when you got your packet. So we will open this up, moderator, to the public for comment, please.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A. Members of the public, you can click the Q&A icon at the lower right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so have we all reviewed that once again? And does anybody have any motions or suggestions for this? Dr. Sullivan?
Let's make sure. I do have a question on the, let's see, it would be the second paragraph where it talks about the institution shall also be approved by the Bureau of Private Post-Secondary Education. Isn't that a U.S. bureau? And how would they approve a foreign program? I don't understand that sentence.
That is in California, the private post-secondary education. But I think for the foreign graduates, I don't think this section would apply to them. It would be C would apply.
Gotcha. Well, I think the fact that AVSB has an existing PAVE program that's proven its place over time, and being able to use that as a model saves us as a state a lot of work and a lot of research. So with them modeling it after the PAVE, I think it has a lot of credibility.
Was that a motion?
I could make it a motion. I will move that we approve the changes to section 4841.5 as amended by our executive officer.
Anybody want to second that?
I can second that.
Thank you, Dr. Warner.
Leah has her hand up as well.
I'm trying to scroll. Okay, so we can go into the discussion, and Leah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and Dr. Sullivan kind of said it already. I think I was on the subcommittee and we had kind of just started to scratch the surface of this, but having reviewed this proposal and everything, I think, modeling it after something that works so well on the veterinary side seems like it's all taken care of and would easily be adaptable to us. And I thank them very much for all of their hard work and think it all sounds great and would fully support this motion.
Thank you. Any other discussion, comments, questions? Okay, moderator, can we please open it up for public comment?
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A feature. Members of the public, you can click on the Q&A icon and type "I would like to make a comment" and send it to all panelists. Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Okay, can we call for the vote, please?
Ms. Pulowski,
Yes.
Mr. Ekman, Mr. Ekman, oh, we can't hear you, Mr. Ekman.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Lazarchuk? Dr. Lazarchuk?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Payton?
Yes.
Ms. Chaffel?
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Warner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you all, and thank you, Ms. Gritman, for presenting to us, and I appreciate all the information that you gave us. That was very helpful in making this an easy decision. So,
Very, very good. We appreciate it. And as always, look forward to working with California. And I'll stay on for a little bit, but I will be on tomorrow as well. So
great. Thank you very much.
thanks.
Okay. Apologize. So let's go to agenda item number 6 for the discussion and potential recommendation on section 2032.1, article 4, division 20, title 16 of the California Code of Regulations. Here we go, regarding telemedicine and time to refill prescriptions. So very briefly, I just will say that Dr. Sullivan and I have met several times, and we have gone over multiple items to discuss. We've done our research. We have looked at many items to try to figure out where we would go with this, and we've tried to do our due diligence in this research. And so today, I believe I'm going to find out, because I'm not really sure. If we have Dr. Smiley on yet?
No, unfortunately, Dr. Smiley has not responded to any of my emails this morning, so he might be having some difficulties.
Okay.
But I just suggest we continue.
Okay. So, but we do have our guest from CVO, so we can continue on with, I believe it's Jan Robinson from CVO. So we're going to go ahead and have a presentation first, and then we will discuss further after the presentation what our findings are, where we are, and we can continue the discussion with telemedicine and how the subcommittee has made some recommendations and where we are with that. So we can continue with Miss Robinson. I think we have, do we make a participant? Are we there? Moderator?
Thank you. This is
There we go. Oh, there you go.
And Jan Robinson has been promoted.
I've been promoted.
Welcome.
I'm trying to think about what I've been promoted to. That's just.
Thank you.
I do know that the slides need to be shared in reverse. So I'm just curious about having the slides pop up. I'm happy to have someone else advance them if that's the case, but I do need the slides up.
This is the moderator. The slides are up. I am able to make you a presenter, and you can move the slides, or we can move the slides forward for you.
Well, I'm happy to move them. We can give them a try anyway.
Sure. Let me give you the presenter role.
It's always a skill building opportunity. All right. Thank you very much to the moderator. So first of all, everyone, my pleasure to be with you today. And I know that Nancy started with the whole concept of sunny California, and then you said it wasn't so sunny, but I'm telling you, we had a lovely little snowstorm yesterday. We've had hardly any snow, but I've been many times to California, and I can close my eyes and think of those. But I've also had the pleasure, actually, of driving the highway from Vancouver all the way to San Diego. And that was just, spectacular. And that's a special point in my mind, along with wine, but that's the wrong time of the day for you, getting a little closer for me. So anyway, beautiful state, and I'm really glad to be here with your board. So thank you so much, Jessica, for the invitation. So my name is Jan Robinson. I am Registrar and Chief Executive Officer with the College of Veterinarians of Ontario. Just as a little bit of background, because this may very well be something that influences this dialogue. I come out of human healthcare, actually, and was in regulatory positions in human healthcare for around 20 years. I've been with veterinary medicine now for about almost 9 to the day. It'll be 9 to the day on Friday, which I find awesome and amazing all by itself that it's gone by so quickly. But I really appreciate the chance to chat about telemedicine, technology, where are we heading, because the questions and the conversation really benefit on both sides of that dialogue. So I thank you very much for this. Now, it's supposed to, let's just see here. I thought I was in the right spot to make this move. There we go. Okay. So let me just begin. I would like to start with a little bit of context. And the first part I want to start with is the veterinarian context. So Ontario, most of you will know that we are 1 in 10 provinces in Canada. We also have 3 territories, so there are 13 jurisdictions, if you will, in Canada. Ontario happens to be the largest population-wise, not necessarily geographically. We have 5,300 veterinarians approximately that we license, And we accredit, so we also have the ability to accredit facilities. I know that that is not necessarily the same across the United States in terms of the accreditation of facilities, but we do accredit facilities in Ontario. We have about 2,300 of those of various sizes and ilks and bricks and mortar and mobiles. And we manage somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 250 investigations related to complaints and illegal practice annually. From a governance perspective, so we do not sit in our capital city. We actually are, our building is in Guelph, which is the Agri-Food Centre of Ontario. So that is where we're located. Our mandate comes from the Veterinarians Act, so that's our statute, and we have enabling regulations that assist with that. Now, what's important about this is to keep in mind that we are an arm's length organization. We are not a government organization. We are what would be considered in the United States an autonomous board, and we are independent of government oversight, generally speaking. We have our council, so our board of directors is known as a council. It has 18 members. 13 of those are elected individuals from the profession, from a variety of both geographic as well as positional representation. And we have 5 individuals that are appointed by government, so our public members. And our staff, we have about 25 staff members. So that just gives you a little bit of context on this. So when did we start really talking about telemedicine and where we were heading and what we needed to be thinking about? And I would say to you that it was actually in around 2012. And it was really related to the whole concept around access, you know, and large areas of the province that are very rural, remote, harder to manage, whether you're in large animal medicine or small animal medicine. But there was absolutely zero conversation really in the veterinary community at that time on telepractice. So as the College Council was developing its strategy 2017, so think that that's a 3-year strategy. So you're coming with a strategic framework that's 2014 to 2017, is when you first see this start to emerge in our strategic planning. And it was really, they were really tactics related to thinking about innovation and technology. And those drivers and those tactics have remained ever since. So our strategic plans ever since, we're in the 3rd one out from this one now, continue to have components related to innovation and technology. And what I want to share with you a little bit about is what it drove. So the first element that it really resulted in was in 2016, our first professional practice standard. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this was a major evolutionary piece. It wasn't really. What it was doing was, it was the very first practice standard in the world on telemedicine related to veterinary medicine. But really what it was doing was providing commentary and a point for veterinarians in Ontario that this was something that was important, that we needed to put into expectations. It's not that some of this wasn't already occurring, and many a veterinarian, and I'm pretty sure those around your table as well, would say, heck, you know, we've been doing teleconsultation for a long time. So it was really starting to put some expectations around that, and then starting to have some hard conversations about what's so different about the practice of veterinary medicine from human medicine, particularly pediatric medicine, that makes it so challenged to move some of the barriers forward related to this discussion. So this standard maintained all of the expectations that we still have today, actually, around a license, around maintaining a scope of practice, around adhering to standards, around adhering to accredited practicing from an accredited facility. It did not, and did not at that time, open up the veterinary client-patient relationship. I'll come to that. But in this very first standard, it basically indicated that you could not establish a Vcpr at a distance. What was very interesting about this that I thought that you might reflect on is that this was against the legal advice at the time. Our legal advisors in 2016 indicated that our ability, if challenged, our ability to uphold retaining the you cannot establish a Vcpr at a distance or establish informed consent at a distance would not stand up in court. No, we have not been challenged on that and weren't at the time, but they were basically saying that great that you're making a move forward, but your move forward is still archaic. It's still not really current to what is happening, and where is the reticence and why the barrier. And they were really, again, taking a look at if in fact telemedicine can be established in human medicine, particularly within vulnerable populations, why is that so different in veterinary medicine? And what's the defensibility around that? And there are arguments around that. I'm not suggesting there aren't. I'm just saying those were the challenges. So our council said, okay, this is all really great, but we're going to do an annual review because this is an area that's going to be changing in an ongoing way. So an annual review of this standard is really important to us, and that we have maintained. And I just wanted to quote for you, because remember I said that our thinking was access driven. It's about access and public access. And you may very well have been provided our current telemedicine standard, but within the overview, it talks about that the college is committed, I'm reading, the college is committed to assuring patient and client access to the convenience and benefits offered by telemedicine technologies, while still promoting the responsible practice of veterinary medicine by veterinarians. So in our role and in our public protection mandate, what is the governance balance, you know, in looking at what are we requiring and why? So the other element that came out of that strategic plan, and this was formed in 2017, was an innovation and technology advisory group. This group is still in existence today, and this was acknowledging that what we're talking about is borderless practice. We can suggest otherwise, but it is borderless practice, and so we need to look at what are the best safeguards that we can have in place around this. So why not talk about this with other regulators around the world and figure out what the heck are we going to look at that's got some common elements of how it is we regulate around it and the pinch points that exist. So this group has representation from the UK, from the United States, from Ireland, from Australia, from Canada, and we also have an association representative at the table, and then some veterinary innovator individuals that are both within the United States and in Canada. So some of our veterinary voices that can lend to challenging a little bit the thinking. We really looked at what's a common definition. Do we have a common definition on an international front? We have come to that. How do we share on a regular basis some of our initiatives? You know, so really interesting to learn about from Australia how they manage you know, the Northern Territory, you know, that is totally fly-in veterinary medicine. So how are they managing that, and what can we learn from that as an example? And there is nothing that's compulsory coming out of this group. It's really about how does it help us, each of us, think about policy development and issues that we may be putting in place for one another if we're not thoughtful. So in 2018, what you see is a change to the Vcpr, and this is where the College Council did say that it could be established at a distance. Now, what's important about this is in our regulations, The VCPR is decoupled. It is not, it never been coupled with the concept of recent and sufficient information. So I'll say this just a little bit more in a minute. So basically, the VCPR is indicating you have a client and a veterinarian that are interested in working together. They're going to talk about the scope of the services that are involved in the relationship they're building, that the client understands the veterinarian is working within the standards and expectations provided by regulation and their license, and that informed consent is required in order to move forward with any recommendation the veterinarian makes. So that's how the VCPR is defined in Ontario. The component related to, which I would suggest to you has become the biggest, one of the biggest tripping points. The component related to having recent and sufficient information, either by way of a physical examination or by on-premises visit, is attached to prescribing. So the ability to establish the VCPR with someone that hadn't necessarily brought an animal in yet, the ability to sit down, take that information, do initial assessment, do what everyone can related to teletechnology as it currently exists today or tomorrow or 2 years from now, is still there, but it's attached to the judgment of the veterinarian around what they need to be able to do in order to feel confident around treatment. And so the ability to recommend treatment that does not attach to prescribing was where we were in 2018, and where we actually are quasi still there, and I'll come back to that. So we moved forward with that at that point in time. And the other thing that was happening in 2018 was when we had our first accredited facility. And this was a facility, I apologize for my chime clock. Anyway, this was our very first standalone telemedicine facility. You can imagine it had a number of exemptions related to what it needed to have on site, given that primarily it's an office with medical records, but also with protocols around how the transfer, of care, the transfer of records, the communications, all of those components fit. I would say to you that although the public were very keen on this facility, the challenge was the business model that was set up around it. And it didn't survive long-term related to the business model. We do have other now telehealth facilities or telemedicine facilities in Ontario. The business modeling is different. The college does not get into the middle of the business model, so we don't comment on that. But what we are saying is that if you are practicing veterinary medicine and you wish to do it from a facility that is saying that it's practicing telemedicine alone, you still need to be accredited. Now, we had, as I'm sure you have had, numerous discussions with innovators, and I would say a lot of them are out of the United States and don't necessarily yet have legs in Canada. A couple do, but not a lot. And the big debate was around the concept of what triage is or isn't. And we could chat about this, but some of the real difficulty was the definition, partially the definition that ADMA provided on what triage was or wasn't. And so the debates that we were having were these innovative groups that were really believing that triage was entirely not veterinary medicine. And we were not of that opinion. And we were not of the opinion that the definition of being able to provide emergency care was intended to be for something that was regularly provided. That isn't the definition or the exemption within our Act. So our belief is, and still is to this day, that teletriage is the practice of veterinary medicine when it is about a specific animal, and where in fact the advice around that animal is to either attend at a veterinary facility immediately or to an emerge facility, or to see the veterinarian the next day. That is about specific animal. It is advice that the public rely on. And because they're calling a veterinarian or a veterinary facility for that device, that is the practice of veterinary medicine in the province of Ontario. So that has been our position. We continue, as I said, to have interesting discussions with various innovation, and we really enjoy providing advice on that, and we see that only continuing to increase. I wanted to point out just a couple of things. We've had Nancy here, of course, from AAVSB, which most of my, I don't know if all of them are, but most of my Canadian counterparts do belong to AAVSB. But there are some policy differences between our two nations related to how regulation is structured. And so we do have in Canada something is known as the Canadian Council of Veterinary Registrars. It is not organized in the way that AAVSB is. It's structured, but it is less formal, let's call it that. And we've been talking about a common approach to telemedicine for about 3 years. This year in July, we did publish a common statement that we're, increasingly looking for a harmonized approach amongst our jurisdictions. We have still varied perspective on the Vcpr. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like post-COVID. We do have some differing perspectives on prescribing at a distance. The biggest thing that we've come to some terms on is licensure, and recognizing that we can't run around the world managing people that are practicing across borders that we can't control any longer. And so we have agreed that we need to move forward and say to the public, the only individuals that we have authority over are our members. And if you want Mr. and Mrs. Q Public to assure yourself of the quality of the care that's being provided, then be sure that you're going to somebody that's licensed by us. If you choose otherwise, then here are the risks that you're opting for. So we're currently working with the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association to look at some, for lack of a better term, the caveat emptor education to the public on buyer beware in this particular arena. So we're in very early days on that. Jessica asked me specifically to speak about enforcement and whether we've had complaints and what we've had to manage on that. Although I can tell you I have many things that keep me up at night and my hair is on fire around, this is not one of them. So we have had no complaints related to the practice of telemedicine to this date. And in relationship to COVID-19 and prescribing, we did in March, I did choose to relax the rule related to the ability to prescribe non-controlled substances at a distance. So refills already, that was fine because the unless the veterinarian felt that they needed to see the animal again, the refills were not the issue. The issue was a new condition that the veterinarian felt that they were comfortable and in their judgment could prescribe. And we're really trying very hard to stay at the level of supporting the judgment of the veterinarian and not getting into over-regulating in the area of competency around this. So that's where we still are. We did, I'll tell you in a minute, I wanted to share with you, I just have to grab it here. We did do a survey in the summer. We're going to do another one actually, just to see, excuse me one sec. We did do a survey of about almost 4,000 veterinarians in private practice, just to see if they had actually used the prescribing relaxed rules. We had about a 30% response rate, which isn't bad actually. And of those that responded to us, 90% of them were aware of the temporary allowance. So that was fabulous. So that at least meant that our communication was getting out there. And of those, 72% were utilizing the relaxed rule of prescribing. Of those that said that they weren't, they were saying that it didn't really apply to the type of practice that they had. They just preferred physical examination or on-premises visit. Or surprisingly, they weren't currently working at the time. You might be interested to know that the medications, the top medications that were being prescribed, there's about 10 of them, but the ones that are the most common are antimicrobials, parasiticides, anti-inflammatories, and pain meds. That shouldn't come as a surprise. And then we asked the question of the comfort that they had in prescribing via telemedicine alone into the future. And we had about 60% that were in the comfort zone. We had 5% that said they weren't comfortable at all in continuing. So I think we've got still, a group in the middle that are wondering about what they want to be thinking about in that area. I'll leave those. There's more to the survey, but those were the thoughts I wanted to pass on. And then just as I'm closing here, it's really hard to know what the future brings, for sure. I can tell you that my council had debate on changes to telemedicine, the telemedicine policy in September, whether or not to, because again, as you well know, the pandemic is a sliding scale activity where we're just constantly still adjusting. So the question of whether or not we permanently relax prescribing for non-controlled substances at a distance, I can tell you lots of support small animal community, not as much in large animal. And the concern of the large animal veterinarians was about being able to maintain their relationship on farm. And so that was interesting. I'm not sure that's the right reason not to do it, but certainly that was an issue. What my council decided to do was to wait, survey again in the spring. Probably we'll do that in April, and we'll look at it again in June. So we haven't made a final decision on that. I can tell you that I lend my thinking a lot to where are we headed with artificial intelligence. Where are we headed with, got a lot of feedback all of a sudden. Anyway, biodigital equipment, how's that going to change assessment at a distance? And are we to be a barrier to that or to be an influencer and a supporter of that movement? We are about to launch next week, actually, the Global Veterinary Innovation Network, which will be made up initially of Canada, the United States, the UK, and Australia as regulators, and 6 innovators and influencers who are non-veterinarians, to start to talk about how do we better communicate and develop our thinking about where technology and veterinary medicine is going, so that as regulators, we safeguard appropriately and put up the right scaffolding, if you will, to make sure that public protection happens, but that we don't overstep our bounds in terms of how we allow this to unfold and permit public expectation to be balanced with safety. So I will stop there. I don't know. I'm happy to pass this back over. The slide deck can go back over, but I'm happy to take questions if you wish, Madam Chair. And if there's another way you'd like to do this, I'm happy to be flexible as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation and all of the information. I appreciate it. I know I have some questions, but let me go to the committee and see if anybody has any questions. Well, oh, Dr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I was just a little unclear. Are you the only agency in Ontario that license veterinarians, or are there veterinarians that are licensed that can practice legally that aren't associated with your group?
No, we are the only licensing body in Ontario.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question regarding, you had mentioned some of the survey results, and it was some of the reading that we had gotten as well. And it indicated that antibiotics as being one of the most commonly prescribed medications through telemedicine. Have there been any discussions or studies about over-prescribing any medications, especially antibiotics, via telemedicine?
You know, I think that that's a fabulous question, but I think that that question is a bigger question in terms of, are we studying that just generally? So we have a risk management framework that we use, that my council uses on a regular basis, and I can tell you that in small, not in large animal medicine because there's been so much focus on it, but in small animal medicine, there's an increasing query around the appropriate prescribing of antibiotics that has nothing to do with telemedicine. We would label this a strategic risk, and so we're just in the process of trying to determine how we study that. One of the sub-questions might be, did anything really change during COVID? We don't have any evidence to indicate that that's the case. We just we don't know why we're starting to see this flag, but it's not directly a dotted line to the COVID piece.
Thank you. Dr. Sullivan?
Did I understand you to say that you had 250 complaints this past year?
In the neighborhood, well, yeah, they vary year to year. So we have between 200 to 250.
Wow. Your people are not very litigious. You need to visit us in California.
I know that you guys beat me on that. I'm not feeling envious. Although I do spend a lot of my time in divisional court appeals, which I'm not keen on. So yeah, it's different environments for sure.
If the committee doesn't have any more questions, I'd like to open it up to the public for any questions. Moderator?
This is the moderator. The Q&A is open. Members of the public, you could click on the Q&A icon at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. I have a request from Jamie Noland. I will unmute your microphone in a moment. You have been unmuted.
Great, thank you very much. I had a couple of quick questions. I really enjoyed your presentation. It was very enlightening, thank you. You said you started a Innovation and Technology Advisory Group. Do any of your board members sit on that group, or is it all external members of the global community?
That's an interesting question. We have had, so I chair and facilitate the group, and we have had one of our counselors sitting as a liaison to that group. As we morph the Innovation and Technology Advisory Group into what will become the Global Veterinary Innovation Network, that will be about country representation. It won't have anything to do with my board. But as we were looking at getting it off the ground, we did have one board member that sat in on those conversations. Yes. And how big is that group? Oh, heaven's sake. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. I believe there's between 10 to 12 of us. If I name them all off, there's between 10 to 12 of us.
Great, thank you. And then one other question, I just wanted to make sure I understood. You were talking about how in 2018, you decoupled the recent and sufficient information part of the Vcpr from the actual establishing a relationship. Is that currently still only associated with prescribing medications, except for COVID-19? In other words, does your current regulations pre-COVID-19 still require a physical or facility exam to prescribe medication?
Yep. So let me help by, and hopefully I can be clearer. So interestingly enough, our regulations, we've had some minor changes to our regulations, but our act and our regulations have been around since 1989. And that piece of it being decoupled has always been there. But we've never spoken the language that way. So when we actually got down to really taking a look at why are we tripping over recent and sufficient, it was a false wall or a false barrier if you look at it. Because it wasn't about establishing the Vcpr, which is what we kept talking about. It was about prescribing. And so when we really took a hard look at that, we said, well, we can solve this part of the problem, but the prescribing piece is still related to recent and sufficient. Now, our recent and sufficient interpretation in our regs has no time limit. So it's not like recent and sufficient within a year, within 6 months or 18 months or anything like that. That is left to the veterinarian's judgment, although they don't always like that. But it is a judgment related to the case and the context. So just to shorten that up a little, it's always been in two separate parts of the regulation. They just always got spoken about together. And in Canada, in some of the jurisdictions, they are in the same place in their rules. So across the country, we've got a mixed bag of that. But in Ontario, they are not in the same place in the regulation. I hope that helps.
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
This is the moderator. Chair, no further requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other comments or questions for Ms. Robinson from the committee? Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very helpful, and I appreciate all the information that you gave us and ahead of time submitting all of the information for us to review. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me. And may I ask yourself, Madam Chair, or Jessica, would you like me to stay on, or are you fine with what you have? What would be helpful to you? And then I can manage from there.
I mean, you're more than welcome to stay on, but I think we're fine. If you need to leave or step out, we completely understand.
Okay. I think I will do that. I wish you well with your dialogue and your debate. I just think we're all in this together in terms of sorting it through. So I wish you a good conversation, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much. We are going to go ahead and take a 10-minute break. So let's make it even and come back at 10:35. I know that's 12 minutes, but that way we all know, because if I say 10:33, no one will come back. So let's take a 10-minute break and return at 10:35. Thank you. Let's see, I think I have most of the committee back then. Okay. So Dr. Smiley has been unable to join us this morning, so we're disappointed because we thought we would have another presentation on telemedicine, which would be helpful. So I'm going to just make a quick statement and then I'll let Dr. Sullivan speak. But currently, there are no regulatory proposals to make the governor's waivers permanent. As it stands now, with our research and discussions, the subcommittee is making the recommendation not to make the waivers permanent. The subcommittee recommends providing further education to the veterinary profession in order to assist in understanding and complying with the Veterinary Medicine Practice Act. The first step in the education process is clearly defining and providing clarity between telehealth and telemedicine. And I will turn it over. I can speak more, but I will let Dr. Sullivan speak any more on our findings and add anything to the comment if he would wish to do so.
Thank you. I think I'm unmuted, yes. Whenever I see proposals that will make some major change to the Practice Act or the scope of practice, I look at the science and medicine behind those changes. There are a lot of emotional issues out there that are used to tell us to change, but we must use science and medicine to make our decisions. Otherwise, down the road, we'll see the unintended consequences of those decisions, of these decisions. So I'm going to list a couple of things that our subcommittee looked at and some work that I have done in the past. At our last meeting, it was proposed that a wellness exam given to a patient could be used to establish a Vcpr that could then be used for an illness that happens 2 weeks or 2 months later or even longer. That is not good medicine by anyone's standard of practice. This is a huge loophole to bypass the intent of the Vcpr. Number two, I often hear and read from a nationally known lawyer that we need to move to telemedicine because the millennials demand it.
Mr. Sullivan, I apologize. This is the moderator. I apologize for interrupting you. Can you please get closer to the microphone?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Continue speaking a couple more words.
Is that better, or do I need to put on my headphones?
Maybe the headphones. It sounds a little bit distant right now.
Is that better?
I believe so. I'll come back and give you another mic check. Thank you.
Okay, I just turned up the volume. I don't know if that helps. The number two item is I often hear and read from a nationally known lawyer that we need to move to telemedicine because of the millennials demand it. Since when does a generation establish the standard of practice? That is not what is happening on the human side. Is this coming across okay? All right.
It is. Thank you so much.
Teladoc is, if not the largest, one of the largest telemedicine companies in the country. And their clients are large companies and large insurance companies. They have one goal, and it's the bottom line. Although the SPCA has all of the best intentions in the world, they are not going to be the only player out there. Just go online and see who is there right now ready to go. And we cannot write legislation or regulations that specifically serve the underprivileged areas. What regulations we write are for the entire state. How are we going to regulate an out-of-state call center? How are we going to verify that the individual is licensed in California? How is this new system going to be regulated? There has to be a lot more work and thought put into this to do our job of consumer protection. Number three, I hear that telemedicine will improve access. Telemedicine will not improve access. The Veterinary Medical Board's responsibility to access is to remove all obstacles for a veterinarian getting a license in the state of California. Only more veterinarians will improve access. Right now, because of COVID, everyone is looking for new veterinary associates. We have had one interview in the last 8 months, and we could easily use at least 2 new associates. Number 4, I ran across a great telemedicine article in the Wall Street Journal written in 2016, and I'm quoting it. Quote, researchers posing as patients with skin problems sought help from 16 online medicine companies with unsettling results. Some of the online doctors misdiagnosed syphilis, herpes, and skin cancer, and some prescribed medications without asking key questions about patients' medical histories or warning of adverse effects, the researchers found. 2 sites linked users with doctors located overseas who aren't licensed to practice where the patients were located as required by state law, unquote. The study was done by a professor of dermatology at the University of California, San Francisco, and was published in JAMA Dermatology. This article also states that because some dermatologists did not take Medicaid, the persons most affected by this were those that could least afford it. It's a great article. Number 5, I read with interest what the College of Veterinarians of Ontario have done with telemedicine and what they are doing now during COVID. First, in their pre-COVID regulations, they have 2 different definitions of a VCPR, kind of what she explained today. One, where a veterinarian can establish a VCPR virtually to diagnose but not prescribe. The second, where there must be a hands-on exam to establish a VCPR in order to prescribe medication. If a VCPR is a contract with a client to basically diagnose and treat, I'm not sure how you can truly have a VCPR with a virtual exam when you cannot prescribe a drug. That contract of the VCPR has not been fulfilled. Besides, I'm not sure how you can have 2 different definitions for the same term in a legal document. With their new system they are using during the pandemic, I think that scientifically they need to be more critical. There needs to be a more critical evaluation of its success than just how many complaints they have been received, especially when they only receive 250 in a year as it is. In order to see if customers are really being protected, I believe that there needs to be an in-depth study to see if the presumptive diagnosis is correct. Did it really save time and money, or did it delay the successful treatment? Did it work in underserved communities? In other words, a truly scientific study that was done like the example of the University of California, San Francisco School of Dermatology. Otherwise, we are just guessing. And again today, I heard her comment about if pediatricians can do this, why can't veterinarians? The board has heard this comment that telemedicine in veterinary medicine is like human pediatric telemedicine. I agree. I started researching telemedicine 14 years ago. Then you could join the American Telemedicine Association as a non-voting member for free. Now all of the stakeholders are involved, including Teledoc. Now dues are for 1 year is $1,500. I couldn't quite come up with that. The ATA develops guidelines for telemedicine in the different disciplines of human medicine. In the section under the title Scope for the pediatric telemedicine, it states, and I'm quoting, telehealth services should not be provided to children under 2 years of age in their home or other non-clinical settings, except when the provider or their surrogate has a previously established in-person relationship with the patient, or when the PCMH has referred them for subspecialty consultation, unquote. And the PCMH stands for Patient Center Medical Home. And these guidelines are presently endorsed by the Association of Pediatrics. And that document is available online, which includes the guidelines. Number 7, therefore, we believe that if, this isn't 7, this is connected with the above. Therefore, we believe that children under 2 years of age are comparable to our patients. Then we believe that the veterinary profession should follow ATA's recommendation, and there should be an in-person or hands-on examination before telemedicine is practiced. In addition to what ATA says about pediatric telemedicine, our patients do not display pain like people. Animal patients instinctively hide their pain because not to do so in the wild would attract predators. So this trait has been passed down to our patients, and we see it every day. I have patients come into the clinic with fractures, and they will not cry. They may try to bite me, but they will not vocalize. These are only a few of the reasons the subcommittee has come to the conclusion that we need to define the terms of telehealth and telemedicine as it relates to our Practice Act. We can clarify for veterinarians what they can do today. And I think from reading the Ontario program, I think that the same pre-COVID Ontario veterinarians, what they are doing, I think right today our veterinarians can do if we follow the Vcpr. As you can see from Christie's list, definitions of telehealth and telemedicine are all over the place. That we need definitions that will work for us, that will make it clear and clean to our licensees and the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sullivan. I also included a study in your packet, and it's regarding Medicare and what they allowed for their participants and what they were going to pay for. And the reason that I included that study was because of the discussion regarding access to care. And we really wanted to make sure that we are addressing this issue. So I hope all of you took a look at that study. I have another study based on the California Department of Education. This is not because of veterinarians, but this is about access to computers, and which is how we deliver telemedicine. Low-income students during COVID crisis face difficult challenges with education. Only 51% of low-income families had a computer at home, 87% of high-income families. In the LA Unified School District, only 62%. How will these families have increased access to care through telemedicine if they don't have computers? So most couldn't even have high-speed internet when they were given a computer. So we have to consider through that and through the Medicare Medicaid study how we're going to be increasing access to care if they don't have the access to telehealth. We're trying to resolve a problem that is far bigger than this. I asked the question about overprescribing because I believe that that is also a bigger concern in doing our research. When speaking with veterinarians, that is, and I believe CVMA brought this up in one of their bullet points, that is a concern when we start talking about, is it easier to prescribe a medication through telemedicine because they are on the phone or they're on the computer, instead of saying you need to come in for the diagnostic work, which may be the correct response, but the owner doesn't, they would prefer not to. It's the easiest way. So does overprescribing happen when they should be coming in? So let's see if the medication fixes it. So I think it's a valid question, and especially when it comes to antibiotics, and that's something that we are trying, the judicious use of antibiotics, and we're trying to eliminate that. Concerns and conditions that veterinarians have over using telemedicine. Heart murmurs, how many times have they performed a wellness exam and picked up a heart murmur? Where the pet is painful, and Dr. Sullivan touched on this. Pets are often stoic. It takes a veterinarian to be able to read and properly assess facial expressions or other responses. The cat, when the owner thinks it is constipated because it's posturing, however, it's actually had diarrhea and just has nothing left. Or the owner thinks the cat is constipated, but it actually has a urinary blockage. So we can't run proper diagnostics and feel pressure to prescribe a medication instead of seeing the pet. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to the committee for discussion. And then we can move forward from here. I did include all of the telehealth and telemedicine just for review. I will tell you in review, AVMA's description clearly states a Vcpr cannot be established solely through telemedicine. It's on their front. When you look it up, it's very clear. So, the committee have any comments? Wave your hand around because I have to scroll through you. Anybody? Oh, there you go. It's Jennifer, sorry. I had to get back to you.
Okay, these screens and all their tiny boxes are hard to keep track of. So I want to say I really do thank the committee for working on this, and Dr. Sullivan is one of my favorite humans, and I tend to take what he says, very seriously. I just wanted to make some comments. I know this is a hot issue, and I still don't know that telemedicine will increase access. I agree with that, but I wanted to address a couple of the comments. So, I mean, personally, I grew up in poverty, so I understand how it is to have, need a computer, and there isn't one. And I'll tell you, I'd find one. I would ask relatives, I would ask friends. When owners are terrified and feeling helpless, they're going to go to Dr. Google, and we know that. And some of the advice that they're going to find is your dog has a tick, burn it with a cigarette. Your dog has a skin condition, pour motor oil on it. So that was my point that I was making, that at least with telemedicine, they're getting some sort of educated advice that doesn't involve harming the animal. And sometimes, I've had, I guess it's telemedicine with, Kaiser, and usually they just ask me what my symptoms are and tell me I need to go to the doctor anyway. And I think that would happen a lot with this. I understand the concern about the Vcpr for a wellness exam not being valid for a condition, but then I think of, it's very easy for us that work in the field. Maybe we have a cabinet full of medication for other pets, and it's very easy for us to access it. But thinking of it from the consumer perspective, when a pet owner feels helpless, and especially right now, I'm not a vet, so trying to get an appointment with my regular vet is difficult. They can't see me for a while. I'm like, I used to work for you. You can't squeeze me in. And I think that in some of those cases, maybe my dog was seen for something, and they gave them, Rimadyl, and now he's having diarrhea, maybe with blood. Maybe they could call in something, assuming that was the reason. Or maybe I'm calling and saying, my dog is in pain, I need to be seen, but I don't have an appointment for 3 days. Can I get some pain medication for now? Because we're looking at, this is a big problem with pet owners getting over-the-counter medications and causing toxic, issues with their pets because they feel so helpless. So I don't want anybody to think that we're disregarding all of the concerns. I agree with Dr. Sullivan and Christy. I'm very uncomfortable with rushing something and having unforeseen consequences further down the line. But I just want us to be very cautious with this. Again, we're not excusing any of the minimum standards, but Christy, you're right. There is a bigger issue here than just access. And I think telemedicine is something that we are not ready for. It needs to be visited again. But I had a point and I lost it. Who knows these boxes? I just want to make sure that we're all aware that we are not disregarding anything. Everybody's concerns are valid, but I'm not convinced that telemedicine would increase access. And that's it.
Our biggest thing is we have access to telemedicine now. We can perform telemedicine now, or veterinarians can, but people don't, the profession is unaware of how to, and so we need to make it our job to show them how and have better education materials and teach them how it can be performed legally. And I think that's our biggest takeaway is there were so many examples given to us and we would say, you can do that. you know you can do that now. Wait, you know you can do that now. Wait, that falls in the law. And I think that's what's missing. That's the key that's missing right now, is people just don't realize that it's legal now. And so we need to educate them. Dr. Sullivan?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And part of that is defining what telehealth is. And a lot of the issues that Jennifer was just mentioning is telehealth. It's educating the public as to what you can or cannot use in a general setting. So that's the direction I think we need to do and do soon.
Dr. Lazarchuk has his hand raised.
I was scrolling. Dr. Lazarchuk. You're still, there you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate the same. Many of the stuff that they're doing in Ontario there, we can do now. I didn't see the need to change anything about our telehealth guidelines at this point. And I would really caution against, recommending any of this be permanent. I realize there's nothing saying they want it to be there just yet, but this needs to be approached cautiously and with forethought into where things will be going. I'd also, like to tell Jennifer, if Dr. Sullivan's your idea of one of the best people, we got to get you out more. Nice job, though. You guys did a great job with this.
Always got to do that, right? Anybody else have any comments? I will open it up to the public if we have no more comments from the committee.
This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A at the request of the committee. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. And just a friendly reminder for Dr. Lazarchuk, if you can lower your hand. Thank you. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
So,
So
who was going to say something?
this is the moderator. Sorry, I noticed that Dr. Lazarchuk's hand is still up. I don't know if he has an additional question.
She's talking about your virtual hand, Dr. Lazarchuk.
Trying to figure it out. I'll turn it off in a second.
I noticed you took your hand down.
There it is.
So, okay. Would anybody like to, because at this point, it would be nice to have something to take to the board regarding defining telehealth, and I think we should discuss that more. And regarding telehealth and telemedicine. So I would like to go into that more and have that discussion a little bit more about whether or not we should pursue those definitions more, and we should ask the board if we can continue that discussion and make that recommendation. So we would need a motion. Dr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I think it's critical that we not only define those two terms, but we need to, in order to define them the way we want them for our Practice Act. the Ontario definition, the two definitions overlap. And even on the examples that you had in your list, I think it's a clear indication that we need to do work because, and there's, probably another 100 out there that define them different ways. And most of the time they see telehealth as the umbrella and telemedicine underneath that, which causes them to literally overlap. I think in our situation, we need to delineate the two, where telehealth is giving out educational material, general information, information that our clients can use right over the phone without us seeing them. And then there's the telemedicine, which is a much more specific and narrower definition, and distinctly different than telehealth. Too many of them intertwine and overlap, and we need them separated to do what we're already doing.
Do we even want to bring teletriage into that at all, discussion at all?
I would say definitely, because a company from Japan, AVMA, had them contact me because I was in California and they wanted to do a project in California. And they were defining everything as triage. Oh, we can do that because it's triage. I said, no, it's not triage. But she kept going down that avenue. So we need a definite, a tighter definition of triage as to what it means in medicine. And I think AVMA's definition on emergencies is pretty clear. It is to provide information until that patient can be seen by a veterinarian. And we do that all the time.
Right.
It's helping that whelping dog safely get that puppy back in through the pelvis until they can get him to the clinic, or inducing vomiting until you can get them in and we can give the activated charcoal. I mean, there's a lot of examples where there needs to be follow-up. And I think AVMA's approach, although they have not defined triage that clearly to me.
So if anybody would like to make a motion and anybody would like to second that motion, please use your names when you do it so that when we take notes that they know who you are. It's very difficult in this video world to know who's motioning and who's seconding. But hint, hint, motion, hint, motion. Dr. Sullivan.
Okay, I've kind of amended the action request that we have in our packet, so I will read it and then we can tear it apart. In order to adequately protect consumers and animal patients in the provisions of provisions of veterinary telemedicine, the MDC recommends maintaining the existing Vcpr condition-specific language. The MDC would also ask to expand our task, the MDC's task, to more specifically define the terms telehealth and telemedicine as it relates to the California Veterinary Practice Act.
Yeah, this is Kevin Lasership. I'd second that motion.
Discussion, do you want to add teletriage?
Yes, I would be in favor of that addition. I don't think we need to make an amendment if Kevin agrees.
I thought that was in there, but yes.
Any further discussion? Jennifer?
I just want to clarify. So the motion today is just to keep the current definitions that we already have and then explore the teletriage definition?
There are no definitions.
So to keep the definitions that the subcommittee came up with in this packet?
No. It's to develop definitions for telehealth, telemedicine, and teletriage that we would then put in the Practice Act, whether it's whether it's regulation or statute, I don't know. But we need, I think, even to enforce what we have, I think we need those terms better defined. We can ask Tara, but I don't think they are defined clearly in our regulations and statutes.
Okay, so develop definitions, do more work. That's the motion.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you.
And to maintain the existing VCPR condition-specific language.
Correct.
I'm looking for more hands waving. Dr. Payton.
Yeah, I'm wondering along the same lines, because I think it's really important to consider the teletriage, because I'm thinking of when we look at telehealth, defining that, telemedicine, there's teletriage, and then the other one, which is much more straightforward, but I still think we should clearly define, is the teleconsultation. Because I find that people get confused between telemedicine and teleconsultation, which teleconsultation we do all the time between veterinarians. But I still think we should probably have that definition as well, just to make sure everything is very laid out and clear.
Yeah, because it's part of the education piece that we need to do in defining what is okay and what's not okay and is part of the law. So another friendly amendment, Dr. Sullivan?
Yes, we can add that. I would, concerning that, I saw in the Ontario group, they excluded teleconsultation out of telemedicine. It's a huge part of telemedicine. I was surprised to see they specifically ruled it out. I think it's very important, and I am amendable to including that in the list of definitions if Kevin is also.
I am as well.
Looking for any more waving hands?
Tara has her hand raised.
Can I go to Stuart and then Tara? Stuart?
One of the things that I'm seeing on the human side of medicine are a number of startups that are developing apps for use between patient and physician. So I'm not sure that there's any need to change the motion that's being considered now, but I think at some point you're going to have to address some of these apps, and whether the data or algorithms that are conveyed are acceptable in the use of telemedicine, televeterinary medicine, or whether or not they need to be defined as standard of care before they can be used. So I just thought I'd add that as something for the committee to consider.
Thank you, Stuart. Tara?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to clarify that telemedicine currently is defined in your regulation that contains the Vcpr, which is California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 2032.1, subsection F. It specifically defines telemedicine for purposes of the Vcpr section. But also there's a reference in that code section to Business and Professions Code section 2290.5, which is the Medicine Practice Act. In that Practice Act, it authorizes and defines telehealth. And when we were initially discussing adding telemedicine to your regulations, we were going back and forth about telehealth and telemedicine and whether the telehealth definition was appropriate for use by veterinarians. And you landed on your telemedicine definition in your regulation right now. I'm just highlighting that for future use. Just so we're clear, there is currently a definition in your regulation for telemedicine.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
So the significance of that would be that it's a regulatory issue and not a statutes issue. So that's, am I correct? Yeah, I'm correct on that. Yeah, good.
Any other discussion, comments?
This is Tara. I just want to be clear that if you wanted to, you could recommend statutory amendments to define telemedicine, telehealth, teletriage, and telecommunication within the confines of your practice act. That would supersede your regulation. Alternatively, you just define it in your regulation. You still have both options.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. If no more committee discussion, I will open it up to the public once again to discuss this.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A feature. Members of the public, if you would like to participate, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. We do have an individual identified as Grant Miller who would like to make a comment. Grant, I will unmute your microphone now.
Hello, can everyone hear me? Thank you. Just one comment. If the committee and subsequently the board does choose to develop regulations in this regard, you may want to consider actually making a separate section for telemedicine. So perhaps 2032.11. And the reason I mention that is because our VCPR language seems to be confusing enough to people. And if we're going to be adding a substantial amount of information regarding telemedicine, in terms of how the public perceives and understands the law, if everything seems to be grouped in one section, it makes it much easier for them to kind of contemplate and understand it. So if we could perhaps go back to our original VCPR language, which has been there for 20 years, peel out whatever telemedicine information is there and actually make a telemedicine section, that might be better understood by the profession than if we just continued to add to our 2032.1 VCPR section. So just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller.
No further requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you. Dr. Sullivan, did you have your hand up again?
Nope.
Oh. Any other comments? Okay, can we call for the vote, please?
Ms. Pulaski,
Yes.
Mr. Ekman,
Yes.
Dr. Lazarchuk,
Yes.
Ms. Laredo,
I'm going to abstain for now.
Dr. Payton,
Yes.
Ms. Schafelt, Ms. Chappelle. Oh, looks like she is no longer, she's not showing for me.
Yes.
I'm going to mark her as absent.
I noticed it was in and out. Her thing kept dropping, so.
Dr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Dr. Warner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Leah actually sent a yes on the participants. Can you see that she voted yes?
Yes, I'll mark her as yes. Thank you.
I think she kept dropping. I think she had a bad connection because I kept seeing she was dropping. So. Okay. So moving on, thank you all for getting through that. I know that was not an easy conversation and task, so I appreciate everybody sticking through that. So next item, agenda item 7, discussion and potential recommendation regarding veterinary premises registration fees. So once again, do you want to share your screen on this with the proposal? So as you all know, we've come up with numerous ideas and suggestions and tried to come up with ways to reduce fees. And every time we came up with something, it just seemed to not work out. Trying to go to websites did not appear to be a viable option. As you can see from our preliminary research. So we would go to the website and they did not have accurate or current information. And we would have to navigate through different pages of the website. And so the online searches just was not the way to get information. So we recommended being able to, for the board to update the renewal application and try to gather data this way. This is going to take a regulatory amendment, and it's also going to take more time for us to gather this information. So in the meantime, we decided to look at offsetting some of the fees and raising the premises and veterinarian fees to allow for a reduction in the RVT fees. If this is included in the sunset bill, then it could take effect in January of 2022. So what we have on the screen, we can go ahead and see there are 3 different options here, and it shows you what the current fee, first on the top is the current application for RVT fees, what we're proposing, what registration fees and what we're proposing, and then what a renewal fee is for, and that's for the RVTs. And then again, we did not look at raising the full $1 million. We would be a shortfall of $623,625. So then there are 3 options down below. The top section are for the premises fees. And again, current registration versus the proposed versus the renewal registration versus the proposed. Down below are the veterinarians, and then what the application fees, the license fees, and the renewals. So just taking a look at this, having the committee take a look and see what they feel would be the best option to present to the board. And the subcommittee has taken a look, and we feel that it was option B was our recommendation, but we wanted to make sure you had everything to take a look at. Dr. Sullivan, did you have anything further to add? You're on mute, Dr. Sullivan.
I think part of our thinking was that the load really probably goes to the premises because that's the widest source of income as opposed to individual veterinarians. I think we look most seriously at A and B, but yeah, we decided not to make a recommendation. That it was pretty, the graph was pretty clear, and we could address questions from looking at this and make it a committee decision.
Don't everybody chime in at once. You guys are so talkative today. Thoughts?
Really, the end result is we're shifting costs for RVTs over to the practice. If the practice already pays them, it's kind of mute. But if they don't pay them, we're kind of forcing them to pay a portion of it, a significant portion of it.
I see no waving hand. Oh, there we go, Dr. Warner. Thank you.
Well, I'm just going to say that option B looks like a very good option to me. I agree with the shifting to the greatest load to the premises, and I really appreciate that you guys have made it this straightforward and simple. This is much more clear cut than I thought it might be. So I think it looks fabulous.
Thanks, staff.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'm not exactly sure how to phrase this, but I would move that we proceed with the suggestion option B for increased for the proposed increases listed in option B.
That was Dr. Warner. Do we have a second? Did somebody second that?
This is Kevin. I'll second that.
Thank you, Dr. Lazarchef. Any discussion? Jennifer?
I just wanted to go on record saying I still don't like the cost for RVT licensure. I still think it's too high, even at the $225, but this is definitely better than the current fees. And since there seems to be nothing we can do to offset the other cost increases internally, I guess I will be okay with this. And thank you again for your work on doing this.
I completely understand and I don't disagree, but the process right now, it's getting it down as quickly as possible so that we can gather the information to work on that. So yeah, it's a hard process. So yeah, concerns heard, concerns heard. Thank you. Stuart? Stuart, did you have a question or a concern or a discussion? Okay.
No, I didn't.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, can we please, moderator, can we open it up for the public, please?
Yes, thank you. This is the moderator. I'm going to change the presenter roles and open the Q&A. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment, click on the Q&A icon located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen and type, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. We have a few comments, requests for comments coming in. Give me just a moment, I apologize. Leah Chouflet, I've just promoted you to a panelist. And you do have your hand up. I'm not sure if you would like to be addressed by committee chair or if that was to get our attention to promote you to a panelist.
Go ahead, Leah, sorry.
That's okay. That's all it was. My computer was giving me a ton of problems, and when I came back, I was no longer a panelist. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy Ehrlich, my apologies if I mispronounced your last name. I'm going to unmute your microphone. Give me just a moment. I'm not able to unmute your microphone. I apologize for that. I'll come back around. And that was actually the only comment or request for public comment that came in. Let me try to troubleshoot this one more time. And I think the audio dropped. No further requests have been submitted, Committee Chair. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yeah, is there a way she can type her question?
Nancy, thank you, Committee Chair. Nancy, if you are able to hear us, would you like to type in? Okay, and I'm reading off of the comment. My comment is, what about VACSP? The statutory limit needs to be raised. That was the comment. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
No further requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Christy, I just want to jump in and just clarify what this would ultimately be doing. These are setting, we would pursue legislation to set the minimums in statute. So what you would see in green is what would be set the minimum, but the board is also seeking that the statutory limits on all fees be increased. And that wouldn't take effect immediately because we would still have to proceed with any kind of regulation changes to increase the fees incrementally as we need in the future. But we're just asking for the legislature to increase the statutory limit for all. But again, this would be setting the minimums, so we would be able to collect the revenue now versus pursuing future regulations.
Thank you. Any other comments from the committee? Would we like to call for a vote?
Okay. Ms. Pulowski.
Yes.
Mr. Ekman. Mr. Ekman.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Lazarchuk.
Yes.
Ms. Laredo.
Yes.
Dr. Payton.
Yes.
Ms. Shefelt.
Yes.
Dr. Sullivan.
Yes.
Dr. Warner.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. We are very productive today. Thank you. We may be quiet, but we're productive. It's great. Agenda item number 8. update from the Complaint Process Audit Subcommittee, Dr. Lazarsheff and Dr. Warner.
I guess I can let Dr. Warner take the lead on this if she wants.
I'm glad to do that, Kevin, if you want me to.
Especially since my notes are now frozen. Go ahead.
Okay, so I think the pretty brief here, everyone, just to direct you to the last two paragraphs in the memo. I think you remember that in the October meeting, we talked about a new review process designed to give feedback to the expert witnesses, as well as streamline not only their review process, but also to help to identify some bottlenecks in the process. Rob has given the feedback to the experts with very positive responses. They not only welcomed them, but felt that it was a big improvement over kind of feeling like they were on their own out there, not really knowing whether or not they were doing things the way it was expected. And then the other change being that we're looking to them to identify, as they do the reviews, is the deviation from standard of care, giving that kind of a level. As you see there, the designation of an extreme deviation, so that we can avoid the process where something is referred to the AG's office and then we discover that maybe it really isn't something that should have gone that far, that we could have mediated it earlier, again, to try to decrease some of the costs incurred. And Dr. Lazarsheff, feel free to fill in any details.
No, I think that summarizes nicely. The other comment I would make is this system was really nice. We got all this in, electronic means, and we had time available to review it and to really get into it and make comments. I don't see in the future how there would be any need to go up to DCA to do this and sit in a room for one day and try and accomplish it. This was a much better system. I think you're going to get a better review from this subcommittee doing it this way. So one advantage to COVID maybe is that we got a little bit better system for this part of our board.
Thank you both. Any questions from the committee?
This may have to go into a definition of telemedicine.
I actually have a question for you. So I read in there, are you guys finding that the subcommittee results have been the same in their evaluations? When you're doing your evaluations, are you finding the same things? When you come
do Kevin and I agree on things?
Yes, or similar. I mean, are you finding that you have similar results when you do an evaluation that things are similar?
That's probably
go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's probably a question for Rob, since for the most part, we're doing these separately, so we don't know exactly. Would you say that's true, Kevin?
Yeah, exactly.
Give that to Rob.
Yeah. I think from what I'm seeing, the results are pretty consistent between Dr. Laz and Dr. Warner. There are a couple little outliers, but I think that might just be more the identification of what constitutes a biased phrase, because that can be somewhat subjective. I think one of the doctors might feel that this particular phrase is a little bit biased, whereas another might just kind of go over. And I know that when I did reach out to all of our experts to give them this feedback, which I think, like they said, was really well received. So I look forward to continuing to do that. They did have some questions about some of the bias language that was identified. I think they understood where it was coming from. And we didn't have to have like a conference call with Dr. Laz and Dr. Warner with that expert to really hash it out. But that is something obviously that we can do in the future, and I think it'll be useful. That way the expert doesn't feel like they're kind of muzzled when it comes to this feedback, and then they can just I think with this become a better expert because they can avoid some of those phrases, or we can hash it out and figure out, okay, maybe this isn't, a biased phrase. And I'm using that particular identifier, but it's also feedback we can get from our DAG liaison because we're looping her in on some of these, and as well as the analyst who ends up getting the review, the expert review, is identifying these kind of possibly problematic pieces of the expert report. So, but for the most part, it was pretty consistent.
Thank you. Yeah, and I was really pleased to hear that the SMEs are happy to get the feedback. So that was nice to hear.
I was too. You never know when you're going to tell somebody, "Hey, I'm here to give you some, a critique," and then you feel you might get some pushback. But it was really great to hear them say, "Wow, this is wonderful. We haven't gotten this before," and they really did convey the sense that they were kind of alone, which is really sad because we want them to feel comfortable with what they're doing. I know that one of them kind of voiced their concern about possibly what they felt maybe they messed up a case by the time it went to hearing, and we don't want them to feel that way. And I think identifying these things through this process is going to help avoid any kind of problems in the future. So it's just going to hone them as better experts.
Thank you. Thank you both for continuing that work, and sounds like it's successful and has an easier process. So that's nice too. Any other?
I think thanks again to the staff.
I know. It's without them, I mean, really. They make our lives easier.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the committee? Not seeing any hands raised. Okay, so if nothing further on that.
Can we open up for public comment on this item? Sorry.
I was going to forget this time. I was just going to say it. Moderator, we can open it up for public comment.
Thank you. This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A at the request of the committee, members of the public. The Q&A icon is located at the bottom right corner of your WebEx screen. And you can type in, "I would like to make a comment," and send it to all panelists. I do have a comment. Since we were having audio issues with this individual, I will read it out loud. It is currently at $50, so we cannot raise it.
I believe that is from the last comment too.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
No worries.
I should have looked at this. No requests are being submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Agenda item number 9, future agenda items and meeting dates. So I would first like to start off by thanking Stuart for his time on the MDC. This is his last meeting with us. So thank you, Stuart, for your time. And it's been a pleasure working on subcommittees with you. I've enjoyed it. And I understand you're moving, or you have moved out of state. So thank you very much for your time on the committee. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I want to thank staff, the committee, and the board. It has been an honor and privilege to serve with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
So future agenda items and meeting dates. First, we can start with any of the future agenda items for committee members. Do we have anything? I don't see any hand raised. I know we have some items that we since we may have gotten some things off our plate today, we have some things that we can move up on our list. And I'm sure we'll be discussing those things tomorrow. So, but if anybody has anything that they would like added, discussed. Okay. Meeting dates. And have the next meeting. You have the list of the next meeting dates.
Sure. So the next MDC meeting date is April 21st, 2021, and then July 21st and October 20th. They're also available on the website.
And I'm guessing virtual from until further notice.
Yes, I think that's safe to assume.
Okay, so let's open this up to public comment, please.
This is the moderator. I am opening up the Q&A. Members of the public, the Q&A is now open. You can click on the Q&A icon and type "I would like to make a comment" and send it to all panelists. Committee Chair, no requests have been submitted. Would you like me to close the Q&A?
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay, we can adjourn if somebody would like to.
So moved.
We're good. Thank you all. Have a good one. Be safe out there. If you're in Sacramento, it's windy. Bad. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank
See
you.
you guys.
you.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.